The virgin will conceive and give birth to a son, and they will call him Emmanuel, which means God with us. So in the previous weeks, in the first week, Phil went through God in the valleys, how we really enjoy our time on the mountaintops, but we get to know God intimately in the valleys. And then last week was God in the wilderness, and how that really drives our dependence on God. This week I'm speaking on God being with us in the storms, which are difficult times that can blow up out of nowhere and just really take us out. So the thing with storms is that, as Jesus says, you're going to encounter storms. So you're either in one, coming out of one, or there's one on the horizon. It sounds like one's just starting. So in James 1 verse 2, it says, "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds." Now, I don't consider it joy, to be honest. Storms, they're not fun times, personally. I really like the church calendar. The Catholic calendar is a lot more full than the Protestant one, but the Protestant calendar really centers around Christmas and Easter, and they're annual reminders that Christmas, it's God being embodied, becoming flesh, and then Easter, remembering Jesus' death and resurrection. And when I stop and think about it, I get the realization, and I'm really amazed how God walks with us, and He doesn't just leave us to it. He doesn't give us a to-do list and go, "Here you go. Once you've finished it, I'll be over there. You come get a new one." He actually walks through life with us, and it's just so amazing to me. And every now and then, I'll just be like in awe. The main passage I'm going to share around this morning is Acts 27. So it's Paul sailing to go stand trial before Caesar. So we'll start. "The next day, when we docked at Sidon, Julius was very kind to Paul and let him go ashore to visit friends so they could provide for his needs. Putting out to sea from there, we encountered strong headwinds that made it difficult to keep the ship on course. So we sailed north of Cyprus between the island and the mainland. 'Men,' Paul said, 'I believe there is trouble ahead, and if we go on, shipwreck, loss of cargo, and danger to our lives as well.' But the officer in charge of the prisoners listened more to the ship's captain and the owner than to Paul. The next day, as gale-force winds continued to batter the ship, the crew began throwing the cargo overboard. The following day, they even took some of the ship's gear and threw it overboard. The terrible storm raged for many days, blotting out the sun and the stars, until at last all hope was gone. No one had eaten for a long time. Finally, Paul called the crew together and said, 'Men, you should have listened to me in the first place and not left Crete. You would have avoided all this damage and loss. But take courage. None of you will lose your lives, even though the ship will go down. For last night, an angel of the God to whom I belong and to whom I serve stood beside me, and he said, "Do not be afraid, Paul, for you will surely stand trial before Caesar. What's more, God in his goodness has granted safety to everyone sailing with you. So take courage, for I believe God. It will be just as he said, but we will be shipwrecked on an island." So, Paul's light at the end of the tunnel was going to stand trial before Caesar. To me, that's a pretty dim light at the end of the tunnel. But the main point, the key point that I'm sharing around this morning is never let the presence of a storm cause you to doubt the presence of God. There's lots of different storms that we can face in life. I've kind of put them into two categories. So there's communal storms, which in Christchurch we've had the earthquakes semi-recently, and then even more recently we had a worldwide pandemic with COVID, and that they just take out. They mess up a whole lot of people's lives and really take their toll. And then there's more personal storms, which could be personal tragedy, going through a health crisis, a relationship breakup or divorce, having financial instability. These are a lot more personal and individual, or a small group of people who are suffering with those and trying to navigate how to get through those storms. There's many different storms in the Bible, both literal and figurative. And I find in Christian circles, we can tend to over-spiritualize storms. So someone going through a storm might go and read Jonah and go, oh, I'm not following God's will. It's God trying to get my attention. And then the next person will go and read through Job and go, oh, it's the devil attacking me. Sometimes, though, if we're honest, it can kind of be our fault. There's a tweet that I really like in relation to this. Well, if it isn't the consequences of my own actions. I'm personally susceptible to sticking my foot in my own mouth. The storms, they can be consequences of our own decisions. In the words of Alanis Morissette, you might have got some good advice that you just didn't take. Or put something off and gone, oh, that's future me's problem. And then other times, it's someone else's fault entirely, and you're taking the brunt of the consequences. In the story, Paul, he tries his best to avoid the storm, but the ship's captain listens to other people's advice. Maybe you did all you could, and because of the economy, the business you're working for has had a downturn and you've lost your job. Maybe you did all the right things, and yet still you're in this. Maybe your parents got divorced and it's out of your control. Maybe you took someone at their word and held up your end of the bargain, but they've failed and let you down. Personally, when I'm going through a storm, though, I don't have the mental capacity to figure out what's the cause of all of this. That's more a debrief later down the track. But I'm just holding on to get through the other side. There's another story in the Bible of the disciples in a storm with Jesus. I haven't been to Bible college, but I think it might be illegal to speak on storms and not bring this up. But so I'll give a little bit of context. So this is the painting by Rembrandt. It's called The Storm in the Sea of Galilee. Makes for a really pretty picture when you're looking at it, but when you're in the middle of it, not so much. So context-wise, the disciples, obviously Jewish people, the Israelites and the Jewish people, they're people of the desert, not seafarers. So even when they cross the Red Sea as the Israelites, God parts it so they can walk on the ground. They don't sail across the Red Sea. There's two types of water for the Jewish people. There's living water, which is of God, and that's flowing water, so streams, rivers, rain. As you can hear, there's some living water on the roof. And then there's large bodies of water, which from Genesis 1 symbolize chaos, uncertainty. And there was actually a nickname for the Sea of Galilee, which was the abyss. It was a symbol of the entrance to hell. So I also looked up that on Google, it says that the Sea of Galilee would take 16 hours to walk around. I walk a little bit faster than Google, so maybe 15 and a half for me. But it's around about the size of Lake Pukaki, to give you a mental image. So at most, to get to the other side, you're going to take 8 hours to walk there. And Jesus says, all right, let's sail across. Me, I'd probably be going, oh, let's put my walking shoes on. I'll leave now and I'll meet you there. But so that's a bit of context before we read through the story. So Mark 4. As evening came, Jesus said to his disciples, let's cross to the other side of the lake. So they took Jesus in the boat and started out, leaving the crowds behind, although other boats followed. But soon a fierce storm came up. High waves were breaking into the boat, and it began to fill with water. Jesus was sleeping at the back of the boat with his head on a cushion. The disciples woke him up, shouting, "Teacher, don't you care that we're going to drown?" When Jesus woke up, he rebuked the wind and said to the waves, "Silence, be still." Suddenly, the wind stopped and there was a great calm. Then he asked them, "Why are you afraid? Do you still have no faith?" The disciples were absolutely terrified. "Who is this man?" they asked each other. "Even the wind and the waves obey him." So in this passage, we get Jesus saying silence. In the Greek, that word is siopao, which means to be quiet or to refrain from speaking. It's a bit of a weird word to use to command a storm. In our common parlance, it would be hush or shh or zip it or even up, 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 up. But the same Jesus who had peace, embodied peace, and then also spoke peace and silence to the storm is also with us in our storm. Never let the presence of a storm cause you to doubt the presence of God. I want to share a little bit of my testimony today. So in my early 20s, I battled with depression. It's a very common thing. I'm sure there's a lot of people here who have either gone through it or are going through it right now. And yeah, it just brings such a darkness to your life. So in the middle of that, battling with it, I got the word from God, "Trust me, I've got this." It meant so much to me. I've actually got it tattooed on me. So I carry that with me to this day. And yeah, that word was just such a hope for me to cling on to in the middle of it. When, as I was going through it, it just got to the point where I couldn't take it much longer. And I remember lying in bed, crying out to God, saying, "God, I can't do this. You've got to do something." And in a moment, God healed me. He broke that depression off me. And yeah, it was just so powerful, and I'm so grateful to this day for it. Now, to be honest, I don't know why he did that for me in that storm, and other people seem to have to get through it without that deliverance. But yeah, I'm so grateful that he did that for me. So yeah, whether you get shipwrecked like Paul in the first story, and you've still just got your life and you're sitting on an island, or whether Jesus says hush and calms those waves that look like they're going to take you down, God is with you in the storm in either one of those situations. What got me to my breakthrough was having that hope, having that word from God, and knowing that God was with me in that storm. The storms can make you lose sight of everything else. Like in Paul's story, the storm, it blots out the sun and the stars. It can make everything dark, and it can make you lose sight of everything else in your life. And storms, they can also take such a toll on us. Like the crew, they're throwing cargo overboard. They don't know how they're getting through. And just like the disciples in the second story in Mark, we can ask, "Jesus, don't you care? Don't you care what I'm going through?" But the great thing is that God is in the business of turning storms into testimonies. The awesome thing is that there's no expiration date to your testimony. With storms, you can get through to the end, and then it's in the past. But your testimony, that is eternal. You carry that with you throughout your life. Personally, I'm not a water person. I'm not a sailor. It's probably a little bit of a disappointment to my Shetland Viking heritage, but yeah, it's not my thing. I like looking at it, but I might go for a wade when I'm at the beach, but I'm not swimming. I'm not on the boat. And the thing is that you don't get experience sitting on a deck chair on a cruise ship drinking pina coladas. You don't get sailing experience just chilling out. You get sailing experienced sailors, they get their experience going through hard times, going through storms, going through pressure situations, and learning how to deal with that. They then can take that experience into their next storm. They know what worked, and they can take that through, and they can guide someone else, a lesser experienced person, through the new storm, and show them the ropes. Like I said, there's no expiration to your testimony. You take that into your next storm, but you can also take it into someone else's storm as well. If you've had healing, you can share that testimony with someone who needs healing and help them, pray with them, give them hope for their situation. If you've had a relationship reconciled, you can take that to someone else and help them through their situation. As I was preparing this sermon, I was thinking, this doesn't feel very Christmassy. It doesn't make me want to sing, "Have a holly jolly Christmas." It felt like a bit of a downer. But then, as I was discussing with Phil beforehand, he was reminding me that the Christmas story, it's surrounded by storms. So Mary, she gets pregnant out of wedlock. Imagine the storm that would have created in her community, being an outcast in their community because the community didn't believe her. Then we get our nice, pretty little nativity scene that we put on Christmas cards. And then after that, King Herod wants to kill Jesus, and so he orders for all the baby boys to be killed. And the Holy Family has to flee to Egypt. That's a whole other storm in itself. But the thing I've realized is that Jesus isn't with us in the storm without first coming at Christmas. We had Marissa's sister's wedding last weekend. Love weddings, so much fun. Just a reminder how much I love love. But I was also reminded that just like marriage isn't a wedding, so Emmanuel, God with us, isn't just Christmas. It's performing miracles. It's Jesus healing people. It's Jesus calming the storm. It's Jesus weeping when he finds out his friend Lazarus has died. It's going into the temple and flipping tables. It's all the way to the cross and the resurrection. Emmanuel, God with us, and then carrying on. In Romans 15, verse 13, it says, "I pray that God, the source of hope, will fill you completely with joy and peace, because you trust in him. Then you will overflow with confident hope through the power of the Holy Spirit." It's such an awesome prayer that, to be honest, God doesn't care if we steal it for ourselves. I pray that God, the source of hope, will fill you completely with joy and peace. Whatever storm you're in this Christmas season, I pray that you'll find peace. Find peace and hope. The words of Craig Groeschel, "Peace isn't found in the absence of a storm. Peace is found in the presence of Jesus." It's just, we can cling to that Emmanuel who is with us in the storm and find peace in that presence of Jesus.